What's the big difference between the enterprise solution and one for SMBs?
Enterprise solutions address complexities, but when it comes to SMBs, they live on day to day. And that's where AI has a part to play, which we'll talk in a bit.
Why do you believe SMEs should be at the center of the conversation? And what's been missing today?
If you compare SMBs to enterprises, I would say 80% are mostly SMB coverage and 20% are enterprises. And that's where most of the banks are heading to, grabbing the 20% market share. But I would say SMBs are a fast moving segment. They take quick decisions in terms of how I want to move their financial health, and efficiency affects their customers, their suppliers, in a more wider economy. So improving their cash management boosts their stability, growth, and also creating jobs. They are cash flow sensitive. They do operate under a tighter margin and quite limited buffers.
Hello, Akhil. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thanks for this opportunity, Monica. I'm excited to be here too.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you've been in a journey. Today, we're going to talk about SMEs. So, you've been in the journey of helping SMEs, and then they are basically the backbone to our economy across the world, but they are still underserved by financial services as such. So, in today's episode, we're going to go into your journey, understanding why SMEs and what you've done different from other fintechs in the market is you've also incorporated AI into your proposition as such. Therefore, not only will go deeper into SMEs, but also into the how is AI helping SMEs to drive a better proposition. So,
Awesome. My favorite topic. AI.
what's the favorite topic? SMEs or AI?
Both.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so then let's get into it if it's your favorite topic.
Let's do
So,
it.
why do you believe SMEs should be at the center of the conversation? And what's been missing today in the fintech conversation we've been having?
Yeah. Look, to be honest, I also, before I founded Finmo, I also had like my own businesses and like small scale businesses. My family had, I'm not talking about where I come from, like India or Singapore, where the banks are still friendly and still work with the SMBs. But there are definitely a lot of emerging markets where it's still a lot of challenge, and entering those markets until you have a better footprint is still quite cumbersome. And as you said, that SMBs are a wider and a fast moving segment. So if you compare SMBs to enterprises, I would say 80-20. 80% are mostly SMB coverage and 20% are enterprises. And that's where most of the banks are heading to, grabbing the 20% market share. But I would say SMBs are a fast moving segment. They take quick decisions in terms of how I want to move to I want to grow. And I'm talking more from a medium term as compared to like me just as an single sole entrepreneur, just trying to, let's say I'm doing a home cook or something. That's also one of the key, I would say, segment that needs to be. But when it comes to treasury, it's mostly the medium businesses where they have opportunity. They wanted to grow outside. I want to start more chains in few more countries. Like my cake sells well, so I want to go. And then as you go multiply into multiple regions, then when the complexity goes higher. But yeah, I think SMBs definitely are fast moving segment, and I think their financial health and efficiency affects their customers, their suppliers, and a more wider economy, like people like you and me taking products and services from them directly. But I think some of the key reasons to address the concerns would be, I think, first and foremost, it would be the economic impact, because they represent the majority of businesses, employment in more countries. So improving their cash management boosts, I would say, their stability, growth, and also creating jobs. They are cash flow sensitive. So coming from where in my family, few people, like I'm living on lending. Okay, I've got, it's a celebration. I've got a loan from a bank. But to an individual, it's a different thing. But to a business, that's, I have a working capital, but I know I'm able to pay that working capital, right? They do operate under a tighter margin and quite limited buffers. And I would say better payment in treasury tools reduces the liquidity risk. And so paying on time to their staff, supplier payments, and see if I can do investment options for growth. And then the other thing is, I think I've already talked about is more the efficiency and cost. Like if you automate payments, and that's where AI has a part to play, which we'll talk in a bit. But automated payments, reconciliation, FX, it all reduces the amount of the manual work, a lot of errors that the teams make, fees that they pay to bank, and the working capital. Working capital needs are one of the biggest hurdles right now. These efficiencies and cost savings they need so that they can free up the time and money for these core activities, which is I need to think more about expanding the business. How can I make better user experience for my customers if I'm actually selling something digital? Or even how do I make the user experience in the shop better? The way I talk to people, the way I explain, does my product self-explanatory? So those are key things that they should concerned about. And the last thing that they're concerned about is what's happening to my finances and things. And yeah, lastly would be accelerated growth to new markets. That's the segment we are focusing, which is fast growing SMB. Because as I grow, I need to have some kind of a faster supplier onboarding. So I think that's where I think SMBs are a focus. And I think what's missing, I think key practical tools for trading. Because if you look at treasury tools today, ERP has enterprise in it. But again, enterprise platforms, they have to definitely go down into what exactly SMB needs and make them more practical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's, I would say, the key things that are missing from for SMBs.
I have two follow-up questions. I'll start with now on the enterprise side, because I think that's a big distinction. Let's say if I am a platform offering enterprise treasury solutions, what's the big difference between the enterprise solution and one for SMBs?
Sure. Enterprise solutions are more towards, I want, so basically what happens is when you look at a treasury management system, it talks about your cash flows. It talks about adding your entities, reporting, right? And interest optimization, your notional pooling structures and things like that. So the larger you are, the more complex your structure is. And then the TMSs of the world address those complexities. Now there's plenty of new stuff coming around, but that's the TMSs, enterprises are fully connected. And those platforms are more concerned about taking requests, but not focusing more on real time. Okay. It's mostly the information is a day behind because they are working with batch based Swift systems. The payments, when it goes out to a vendor or a supplier, typically takes a day or two. And it's on Swift too as well. I would say their focus is more on solving the complexity of getting the data into the system, but not focusing on how quick it should be, how live it should be, and how fast it should be. So that's the enterprise side of things. But when it comes to SMBs, they live on day to day, right? And their main goal is to, hey, how much am I having in Sing dollars because I need to pay an invoice, right? I may be having some USD balance in some other bank, but I have to go and ask someone to log in, look at the balances, then put it into a nice Excel, and then it shows me the cash flows across all my entities if I'm having multiple entity or distributed treasury setup. So it is time taking if you just ask them to get onboarded onto enterprise TMS. What they want is, okay, if somebody can quickly give me, okay, I have to make this payment and I can use my USD balance, and that conversion happens like instantly, I can make the payment straight away and enjoy some kind of invoice discounting or from the supplier themselves. And yeah, I would say these are the key differences between the SMBs and enterprise.
Okay. So now that you talk about effects and transfers out, do you also offer the making the transfer out, the cross-border payment?
We are licensed MPI in Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, we also got DFS in Dubai. But that helps us to collect funds on behalf of our customers. We can safeguard those funds with our banks that we work in that market. But that's the data that we have, which is on Finmo. We can't offer them insights if we can't connect to their external banks, because they may not be using us in that particular. They may be using us for fast speed. For okay, I'm in Singapore, but I have Filipinos paying me, or Filipinos clients, but I don't have an entity in Philippines. So I can just use Finmo and collect it. But I have an entity in Singapore and I'm not using Finmo for that. I'm just giving you a hypothetical example. They can use us for Finmo, but they're using a local bank in Singapore. So what's the use if I just give them Philippines, but not able to give them the transactional data from Singapore? So that's where the connected piece comes in very important, which is connect your bank. We are connecting banks as we speak. We open banking platform, wherever open banking is existing, we have already done that. Southeast Asia is not an open banking, there's no framework, although the regulators are pushing for open banking frameworks. We are still going bank by bank and getting the information with our clients, helping us talk to them and things like that. So yeah, so that's the connected piece. Once we have that connected piece, then we provide them the insights. Based on those insights, we can tell them, hey, you don't have Singapore dollar balance, but you have US dollar balance. And if you want to pay in Philippine pesos, you can use a USD balance to make that Filipino pesos invoice directly. They have the choice to either use Finmo, where we show them the FX, the fee they are going to save using us, or they can also choose to pay with the local banks that they're using in Singapore. But then they can see the difference of the effects. So they can make more educated decision as to whether you want to use us or use DBS, your own account. But we live trying to harmonize everything together. So you still use their bank, the payment goes out, and we still reconcile everything for them.
It is a very complex product and
It is.
setup and operations. What made you start?
You mean start Finmo? Yeah.
Yeah.
I, my experience has been 20 years within payments and treasury across 3 continents. I think the podcast name is purpose driven. So I think purpose is something we all look for. I would say purpose provides some kind of a direction, motivation, and meaning for why you are here. So I would say when I spent 20 years of my life working in a bank or a fintech, my purpose was to learn. But as I'm here for the last decade or so in Singapore. I'm trying to work within the Asian framework right now, working with the regulators and the different regulatory frameworks that we have. I can see that there is plenty of cross-border challenges in the region, right? So I think coming back to the question about why Finmo is so complex, getting into payment, a lot of people don't want to do payments because it's handling somebody else's money. It's a huge responsibility. I get that. I think the most important thing is two aspects. One is purpose, which I already mentioned, provides direction, notation, blah, blah. The other thing is more about the people I came across with before I founded Finmo. The people I came across with had similar kind of mindset, which is, hey, we want to solve a problem, and that problem is deep, but we can't solve all of them. But let's pick and choose which one we want to solve. I think that the me thinking in terms of solving needs and then having that coherent mindset let us okay, let's do this. And the thing is, we are in the leadership team, the founding team, we have various skill set. So one is a compliance guru, one is a partnership guru, one is more of a GTM player, FX expert. So I think we had all the right ingredients to run a payments business. And most of our founders have either worked in a fintech, started a fintech, or come from a payments background. So for us, for the founding team, it wasn't too difficult to understand, okay, what exactly the regulator wants, or how we should do this, because doing payments business is all about responsibility, responsible finance. And yeah, so I think that's one thing. And also, I think there is a bit of element of financial inclusion, digital transformation. We wanted to basically build something that can stay forever, as in, hey, we left a mark, a legacy. So yeah, I think that's the purpose of why we started this.
Oh, amazing. I think like what I find challenging is when you are in the trenches and you're in the day to day, sometimes exactly you're into the detail and the pressures of work. So how do you ensure that purpose remains at the center of you building the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, to be honest, the reason we started Finmo was more about we are solving a purpose. So when we go and hire, we ask people, as in, what exactly do you want to do in your next role or stint? And then we make out, okay, is this person genuine enough to, or is it just that he wants to experiment, and which is okay. I just want to do this because I feel this is the right way of doing it. So that's the instinct that we look for. And I think when you find those people, that's the important thing. So that's important thing, that the purpose stays alive, and then the hunger and the problem solving instinct should never die. Okay, so that's how we try to still keep the purpose, right? And also the thing is, we're not telling people, hey, go look at those three platforms, what they have built, and mimic it into Finmo. We don't do that. We say take the inspiration, and then this AI, your market research, and that has really gone down from weeks to hours. So if I tell them, tell me the difference between these three platforms and how they're differentiating, people just come back with like in 2 hours. And even if you today, if you go into an interview and you ask somebody to submit a case assignment, I don't even give them case assignment because I know the amount of a lot. And the thing, and it's no issue absolutely in using AI tools, but sometimes your gray matter still needs to work.
Yes.
I would say some it, there is good and bad, but I would say the important thing is prompts, right? Even if you have to put prompts to the AI to give you information, that also requires thinking. So yeah, if your gray matter is being used in thinking of prompts, that's enough. So anyway, coming back to the where was I?
Purpose.
Purpose, yes. So yeah, so we are not trying to build the same level of tools and say, hey, look at those three platforms, copy it, and then, because then they were like, why do you need just that? Why can't we get better? And that's what I want. Why can't we make that better? And okay, why do you think we can? How do you think you can make it better? So that's where we spend more time on, as how we differentiate, create value, because we're not trying to replicate it. If we're trying to replicate it, how are you going to differentiate, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so important is to first understand you're solving a real problem and you resonate with that problem, and then how you can find various ways and you solve that problem.
Just to add to that, I totally agree. It's like, how do you differentiate? How do you find that problem? So in my mind, I was just thinking, so how have you done it? Like your solution, Finmo, how has it reimagined what's out there and solving the problem for SMBs?
We are trying to solve, we haven't solved it fully, but we are trying to, because as you say, SMBs now we don't have one single problem. The bottom line is every CFO has a different requirement, but can you solve for all of them? Maybe not. So the important thing is to identify what are the key things, common things. And we identified those common things. And that's what we are working on. And mostly it's more around real-time cash visibility, cash flow positioning, forecasting, reconciliation, automated receivables and payables. So these are the basic stuff that we want to provide to, and that's what we have solved for. But when we go to, so let's say we met a cosmetic player It's a large European cosmetic company based here in Singapore. We met them like 2 weeks ago to understand what treasury platforms, and it's a large company, but it's still considered a little bit on the high end medium side of things. But they are using ERP and TMS's platform. Their problem is different. Their problem is I'm spending 1 million on my treasury platforms, all of them combined, including the cost to pay employees to run that. But it takes me 6 months if I want to report. Okay, that takes us to a new problem like data visualization, reporting. I'm like, okay, I can provide you something like that, but have you ever thought about using Tableau or BI tool? Okay, what is that? And I think it's more about providing answers and solutions because a lot of people, when they come from a traditional non-fintech or a traditional manufacturing kind of a mindset, they may not be exposed to the kind of tools and platforms that are available to them. So that we are helping them more in terms of consultancy as well.
Amazing. It's genuinely outcome driven, customer outcome driven.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've also embedded more AI into the solution.
Yeah.
Tell us more about it and what's the vision?
So thing is, AI we have been using in our day to day, as I mentioned. And if you look from a roadmap perspective, we thought, and there were market driven requirements and there were customer driven requirements. A lot of, but I would say a lot of them were customer driven. And then, for example, forecasting my cash flow, reconciliation, automated reconciliation, analytics around my biggest defaulters for invoicing and things like that. So they were all on the roadmap. But and then compliance, support, they were all in the roadmap. But we thought, hey, if we have to get to a support, and we are still small, we're quite lean. So we thought, if I need to do all of that, I have to probably take 20 more people in the team to go and work on specifically these things. So how, so first and foremost, it's important how, when you look at those roadmap, are there ways in which you can speed up by using AI? And we were using, and we are a young company, young startup. So I would say relatively young, less than 5 years. But I think at being young has allowed us to move fast and adopt AI as early as possible. And I think at Finmo, we always believe that in staying ahead while leveraging the latest technologies to keep our teams lean and our products world class. Mo AI is actually an intelligent advisor to CFOs. It's looking at the data and these agents that we have built into the system are tasked to look at certain events happening. And then we learn a new agent. Oh, we should build this, we should add this. And then we go and add, and then it start crawling the information and looking for, okay, yeah, now it seems like it's quite 10% away from what I am supposed to be. And then it gives and flags it up straight away to the, and we have initial adopters. We just launched like in the money 2020 in Europe when we got the license in the UK. So we learned, so it's not too far since June when we launched. Since then, we see a lot of adoption happening. But of course, it comes at a cost. And we'll come on to the cost aspect because the thing is, it's not cheap of what you're doing because till the time you're just doing search on Chat GPT, it's okay. You're just paying a normal fee. But when you are trying to host your internal information, your transactions onto MCP, it's draining your funding and capital that you're looking at. So I will come on to that. But yeah, why Move AI? Yes, I think I've answered that. We intelligence is the key gamut for us, and we want to be centralized around that. It has accelerated our roadmap definitely, and we experiment widely, and so we have tested anthropic models, open source tools, using our own engineering stack. I think at this point in time, I can safely say that we're looking at a hybrid model where some part we can do in house and some part we can use cloud or Gemini APIs, basically, which is what we're doing as of now.
Yes. Can you expand on the practicalities of building AI driven features as such? Because let's say that you started 5 years ago, hence you have, I'm assuming it was just like a fintech without AI. And then in the past few years, it's cool, here's the AI boom. And then how did that transition happen? What went through your brain? And how did you change your ways of working with the product team?
Great question. Yes, when we started, AI wasn't even close. So we are thinking about, okay, let's first solve the problems of the finance team. So I think when we started, it was more about building blocks, working with the banks, getting the licenses, building the pipe. So it was more about getting the data, right? The last 2 to 3 years, because as I mentioned earlier, AI is of no use till if it does not have the data, right? To get the data into our ecosystem, that's what we were focusing on. I think those ones me because asking a bank to give their APIs or transactional data does not require API. It goes through a hell lot of exercise convincing the bank, understanding, okay, what it's in it for them, what's in it for the customer, and how we are trying. So that is more about face to face understanding discussions. So I would say AI is probably helping us to create a day, but you still have to go and convincing and negotiating, and so that's what we focused on a lot more. But since for last 1 year or so we have the data, so I think we could focus more on, okay, how to leverage that data and then provide meaningful information. How we got about AI, I think with the open source tools that came out in the market. Now I won't say we were one of the first ones to adopt it, but we wanted to experiment and see how we can, rather than for, because the thing is, the finance team can, even if they go to internet banking in a bank, they can still look at their transactions, and that's it. If they need to make some meaningful information about those transactions, they have to give it to an analyst who looks at it, puts the data into a database or looker or a metabase or something, and then does a research and then give meaningful information about, okay, that's what has happened. Why has my sales gone down? And why X amount of transactions are getting declined from a specific supplier, for example. All that intelligence is coming after the transaction has happened and much later when somebody goes and analyzes this. And we thought if we need to differentiate now that we have the data to, we can't just put a static information and say, hey, these are your analytics and just go and look at it. We need to actually change the consumer behavior, and it's not easy to change the behavior, but they all want those insights. So we thought just putting information out there to available to them may not be enough. It has to make some sense, because as soon as I log in, Mo or someone comes and they say, "Hey, you know what? There are 5 payments that are pending your attention, and they are significant because it's roughly 1 million in total, and you have three invoices that you need to pay. So it is crucial that you address them." If somebody goes and tells me, I'll go and do it. So that's where, when we spoke to the teams and said, hey, now that you have got the data, now that you have got the reports and everything into the system, how should we think about giving an insight to the treasurer when they log in? These are the 5 transactions that they have to first address because it's having this impact to the entire cash flow. So this is the, now it just becomes a purpose. Now the purpose is to, and then we address, how we go about solving this is that there are product teams who have some understanding of AI, and then there are tech teams who have a solid understanding of AI. Some of them, I think when we hired a lot of tech teams in Finmo, we did not ask them that whether you understand AI. We asked them, how do you think AI would help Finmo? That's one of the key questions in the interviews. And so we just do check on, so I gave you an example of the kind of insight I want to give to a treasurer. So then the team goes and says, okay, in order to make this happen, what should we do? And I think the first thing that I and my CTO did was search this, how to get this to the chat GPT itself. Because to be honest with you, I don't come from an AI. I did upskill myself understanding this, but you are asking AI how to build AI. within the company. And we did that. I'm not shy about that. I was
Yeah,
a bit
we all.
shameless. I was a bit shameless there. So we literally and tried to first see, and I think that's where we looked at what is all going on in the market, right? There are some people who are like OpenAI already built a lot of those things. I think there are definitely a lot of fintechs. If you say which other fintech I look upon, I would say mostly the compliance companies are implementing AI very quickly into their, because that's going to differentiate very quickly from, because you see there are plenty of fintech compliance reporting, so those companies are there and they were doing that. I and my CTO actually said, hey, let's go and talk to a couple of these companies and try and understand what they do. And we did a couple of interviews. They were very friendly. They did mention to us as to how they're trying to solve for it. And we got a little bit of understanding. And I think from there, we also upskilled our existing tech teams, product teams, to understand what all this MCP is all about, vector databases. The thing is, it's quite technical in nature when you talk about more AI specifically and how we did that. Understanding MCPs, understanding vector databases, how MCP works between, it's like a USB-C that you have on your laptop connecting your database and so that's the model that you're talking. So to layman, you have to, there are people who don't understand what an MCP is, right? So we try to upskill everyone first. Then what we also did was we invited few experts who are from the industry to come and bit of a short 15-day consultancy to help us set that up. We upskill, we did a short stint there as well, and they trained our people for it. And I think it was quite useful for all of us. But then I think we also spoke to Google, because their Google Gemini has, if you're using Google, there are definitely a lot of credits that Google gives you to experiment. So I think that's what we are going to leverage on, because as compared to Claude and Google is definitely a lot more fit for our size, right? Keep it simple. So yeah, I think that's in short, not so short answer to the movie, I think.
No, it's a really good answer. So, what do you recommend people who work in product teams in fintechs, but maybe their company is not incorporating AI into their strategy yet? What do you recommend to PMs to do to upskill themselves if this is not part of their day-to-day job?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think there are two areas I would say. One is the stable coins, which is different from that topic, and the AI, because AI will be embedded in day to day work of all that PMs do. And again, I'm no expert, but the way I did as a PM and learning about AI was first, I did a couple of courses, LinkedIn courses, and I also did like short 15-week, 5 weeks online courses to understand the jargons around what this is. And I think a PM specifically has to do his own research. When you hear, like I do attend a couple of seminars, especially from OpenAI guys who do that. As soon as I see I don't understand a line, I go and put it down somewhere because I want to research on it later. I could be using ChatGPT to research it or do my own research to understand this whole thing. And then I think it's more about attending, discussing this with the communities. The AI communities are there. A lot of AI communities are there now on LinkedIn that you can join and you can raise questions and understand. And I think there is plenty of data available with AI. ChatGPT itself, it can tell you how exactly you want to go about that. So understanding the jargons is not a difficult task. How MCP, how high vector databases. So typically, if you are not coming from a tech background, people definitely talk to the tech teams. They discuss the design, they discuss, hey, this is how I want to achieve. And there is a healthy discussion about how to achieve that, because PMs define the what and the why. And that's it. But I would say don't refrain yourself to how. Go into how. If you want to understand AI is a very technical topic, right? Just talking about few jargons is not enough, is what I'm saying. So doing your own research in terms of how you can set up more models, How can you set up more prompts? What are the various tools available? Cost associated with that? I think all of that is quite important. And the most important thing is the cost, to be honest, because you are trying to achieve significant value add for your customers, but it's all coming at a cost. And if there are some efficiencies that you're getting for customers, I would say you still need to demand a price for reduce giving them intelligence, but you may not be able to do it initially because as you see adoption happening and as you see similar like any beta product, right? As you see adoption happening, you still have to fund it, which is why capital is quite important. It's a capital intensive thing.
I absolutely loved it. It's been an amazing episode. Thank you. I'm very conscious of time. In a minute or two, what's your biggest challenge now?
I think for finance leaders, the message is clear. Like standing still is no longer an option. While you don't need to transform overnight, I would say embracing change is essential to remain relevant. And I think the methods of delivery are evolving, but the fundamental of finance, the integrity, the risk management, they all remain crucial. So yeah, I think that's one message that I want to. And for Finmo, yes, we're doubling down on our mission on turning the financial intuition into the intelligence thing. We are expanding our platform, deepening bank and ERP integration, scaling the Mo AI. Yeah, yeah. I think with the right data, the visibility, the automation, you can shift from reactive reporting to a growth driver for your company. And we want to be at the heart of it. Yeah, I think that's something that quite close to my heart too.
That's absolutely amazing. Akhil, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you in the show.
Likewise, Monica, pleasure. Pleasure is mine too. Thank
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
See you next week. Thank
Ciao,
you.
ciao.